Sunday, the 29th of April, 1945, 10 miles northwest of Munich, Germany. Units of the U.S. 7th Army's 45th Infantry Division enter Dachau, the first regular concentration camp established by the Nazis. The soldiers are immediately confronted with a smell of human excrement and decaying bodies. Many of them cry or vomit as they find piles of severely malnourished corpses, more than 30 railroad cars filled with thousands of dead bodies, and nearly 30,000 survivors, most of them severely emaciated and barely able to stand. Thousands are suffering from typhus and starvation, and many will die in the weeks and months following liberation. One of Dachau's commandants, responsible for the systematic torture, mistreatment, and deaths of prisoners held in the camp, is Alexander Piorkowski. Alexander Bernhard Hans Piorkowski was born on the 11th of October 1904 in the city of Bremen, then part of the German Empire. Piorkowski was 14 years old when the First World War ended in November 1918. And in the years that followed, he witnessed Germany descend into economic and political turmoil. The Treaty of Versailles in 1919 imposed heavy reparations, territorial losses, and severe military restrictions on the country. This led to widespread hardship, including hyperinflation in the early 1920s, which wiped out savings and plunged millions into poverty. Politically, the Weimar Republic, which emerged after the fall of the German Empire in 1918, struggled with chronic instability. Frequent changes in government, extremist political movements, and weak coalition leadership fostered deep disillusionment. Many Germans felt humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles and were angered by what they perceived as ineffective leadership. Adolf Hitler exploited this frustration through propaganda and promises of national revival, stability, and economic recovery. Like many young Germans of his generation, Piorkowski entered adulthood during a period of uncertainty and limited economic opportunity, training as a mechanic during the 1920s before working as a traveling merchant. In June 1929, Piorkowski joined the SA, or Sturmabteilung, which was the Nazi paramilitary force also known as the Stormtroopers, or Brown Shirts, due to the color of their uniforms. In November of the same year, he became a member of the Nazi Party. On the 30th of January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President Paul von Hindenburg. 4 months later, Piorkowski joined the SS, led by Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler. In July 1935, Piorkowski was placed in command of an SS regiment in Bremen, responsible for recruitment, training, and political enforcement within its region. The following year, he was transferred to command SS forces in the East Prussian region of Allenstein, before retiring from service in September 1936 for health reasons. From July to December 1937, Piorkowski was provisional commandant of Lichtenburg concentration camp. Following its conversion into a women's concentration camp later that year, he served as deputy camp commandant under Günther Tamaschke until August 1938. In early August 1938, Piorkowski was transferred from Lichtenburg to Dachau concentration camp, located about 16 kilometers or 10 miles northwest of Munich. There, he served as Schutzhaftlagerführer, or head of the preventive detention camp, responsible for the internal operation of the camp and the supervision of prisoners. From February 1940 to mid-September 1942, he was the camp's commandant. As Commandant of Dachau, Alexander Piorkowski was responsible for the shooting of Soviet prisoners of war. These killings were carried out deliberately and repeatedly under his authority. From late 1941 onward, Soviet prisoners were separated from the rest of the camp and confined to blocks reserved exclusively for Red Army personnel. They were deliberately excluded from registration in camp records, ensuring their deaths would leave no official trace. Prisoners were removed from their barracks, taken into custody, and killed within a short time. Their bodies were sent to the crematorium, while only their clothing was returned to the camp. In early 1942, entire blocks holding Soviet prisoners were cleared. In February alone, several hundred prisoners were taken from the camp and executed. The killings took place at a firing range outside Dachau and inside secured bunker facilities. Armed SS units carried out the shootings, operating under Piorkowski's command. Piorkowski's responsibility for these executions was later confirmed during post-war proceedings by the testimony of Karl Schütz, a member of the SS Guard unit. Schütz stated that he personally witnessed executions while assigned as a medic. He described prisoners being shot from a distance of 25 to 50 meters, after which their bodies were stripped, loaded onto trucks, and transported to the crematorium. The exact number of Soviet prisoners murdered at Dachau under Piorkowski's command was never established, but during post-war proceedings, evidence emerged indicating that victims numbered in the several thousands. In one garage near the SS headquarters, a container was discovered holding approximately 10,000 identification tags belonging to Soviet and Polish prisoners. As Commandant of Dachau, Alexander Piorkowski also authorized and enforced severe physical punishments against prisoners. Inmates were sentenced to flogging with sticks or ox whips, receiving 25 or even 50 blows. Piorkowski personally signed the punishment orders, often approving more than 100 cases per week. On Saturdays, up to 200 prisoners were subjected to so-called hanging, in which inmates were suspended by their arms for hours. Because the bunker could not accommodate the number of prisoners punished at the same time, these punishments were carried out in the camp washroom. Piorkowski also used violence himself. The Polish prisoner Graf Poliński, a former Polish diplomat, was beaten by Piorkowski and died shortly afterward from his injuries. Soviet prisoners of war were repeatedly beaten as well. In May 1942, according to one witness, groups of Red Army soldiers were seen leaving the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police office at Dachau. He stated, "They came out bloody and beaten up." Prisoners were also subjected to prolonged solitary confinement in the bunker. Dr. Fromm, a prisoner held at Dachau, later recalled, "I was in solitary confinement for 17 days, then placed in a dark cell for 42 days, receiving food only every third day." Under Piorkowski's command, abuse at Dachau expanded into systematic medical experimentation on prisoners, carried out with his knowledge and explicit authorization. Piorkowski granted SS doctors permission to select prisoners themselves for experimental use, while SS guards enforced the procedures by force. These guards operated under his authority and ensured that prisoners could not refuse. In June 1942, Heinrich Himmler visited Dachau, and Piorkowski personally escorted him through the camp and into the experimental areas. During this visit, a mobile low-pressure chamber was demonstrated, and a prisoner died during the demonstration. After the war, prisoners described the experiments in detail. Some testified that inmates were strapped to operating tables and subjected to surgical procedures, including goiter operations, without anesthesia. Others confirmed hypothermia experiments conducted by Dr. Zygmunt Rasche, in which prisoners were exposed to extreme cold or immersed in ice water until they collapsed. A Holocaust survivor, Walter Römer, testified after the war about his personal experience. In April 1942, he was deliberately infected with malaria as part of an experiment conducted by Dr. Klaus Schilling. Römer described how the illness ravaged his body and how he was left to take care of himself without adequate care. Römer held Piorkowski responsible for his suffering and for the deaths of other prisoners, stating that Piorkowski had given the doctors free rein to conduct these experiments. From medical experiments, Piorkowski's crimes extended directly into the systematic removal of prisoners marked for death. Beginning in the summer of 1941, transports of inmates deemed unfit for work were organized under his authority. Piorkowski personally selected these prisoners together with camp doctors, and stated openly that those chosen would go into the gas chamber. From that point on, such transports were carried out regularly throughout his entire tenure. When one prisoner designated for transport attempted to take his crutches, Piorkowski forbade it, saying, "You do not need any more crutches. Tomorrow you are with St. Peter." Among the remaining prisoners, this remark confirmed that the transports meant certain death. From the autumn of 1941 until Piorkowski was replaced, approximately 1,000 prisoners per month were sent on these transports. Those closest to death were targeted first. At the end of January 1942 alone, around 110 prisoners were taken directly from the infirmary and assigned for transport. Between mid-January and the end of June 1942, roughly 20 transports left Dachau, each carrying about 100 prisoners. Surviving admission, transport, and death registers confirmed the scale of this system. These deportations were not administrative transfers, but selections for extermination, carried out under Piorkowski's direct authority, and forming a central part of the crimes for which he would later face justice. By 1942, Piorkowski had become involved in a widespread black market network operating out of Dachau. Camp resources were misused, valued goods were diverted, and SS personnel enriched themselves through illicit trading schemes. Dachau effectively became a distribution point for stolen food, luxury items, and property looted from occupied territories. Piorkowski protected these activities and failed to enforce even SS regulations when they interfered with personal gain. His conduct drew the attention of SS leadership. During a visit to Dachau in 1942, Heinrich Himmler reacted with fury to the state of the camp and Piorkowski's repeated, extended absences from his command duties. An internal investigation followed, focused not on the killings, beatings, or experiments carried out under Piorkowski's command, but on financial misconduct and abuse of authority. In mid-September 1942, Piorkowski was removed as commandant. On the 31st of August 1943, he was formally dismissed from the SS. The mass crimes committed during his tenure were ignored by the SS and left unpunished until after the war. The Second World War in Europe ended on the 8th of May 1945. Almost 2 years later, in January 1947, Alexander Piorkowski was brought before a United States military tribunal at the Dachau trials. He was charged with war crimes for his complicity in the deportation, abduction, and ill-treatment of prisoners at Dachau, his supervision of inhumane medical experiments conducted by SS doctors, and the mass shootings of Soviet prisoners of war. The tribunal found Piorkowski guilty and sentenced him to death. Following the verdict, Piorkowski repeatedly begged for mercy, filing clemency petitions in an effort to avoid execution. However, every appeal was rejected. When Alexander Piorkowski was hanged on the 22nd of October 1948, he was 44 years old. His last words were, "Long live Germany, long live my family. Be well, Herr Vater." I am ready. My son, take revenge for me.
Thanks for watching the World History channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.